It's early December, and though temperatures dip below freezing at night, salvias prolong summer's delight, even enticing unexpected buff-tailed bumblebees to the garden. The bird bath may be frozen solid, but we're sending out a warm welcome to our December garden tour for visitors new and familiar friends who've joined us here before. We'll show our favourite early winter flowers and foliage, the benefits of two rather overlooked summer beauties, a cheery seasonal door wreath with living flowers, and, albeit vicariously, we invite you to inhale the wonderfully festive scent of pine needles as I build a bonsai-influenced container arrangement. Such palpable seasonal transitions have taken place in the last few weeks. In late November, we enjoyed the stained glass autumnal colours of Cotinus, and these are still uplifting the spirits in December. This shrub is grown in a container here, and an annual prune in early spring seems to generate growth with leaves that last longer at the end of the year. Now deciduous curtains of leaves are falling away to reveal the structural silhouettes of shrubs and trees. We're also enjoying the textural and structural interest of Hylotelephium seed heads, formerly known as Sedum seed heads, which sounds far more enjoyably alliterative. These resemble miniaturized versions of the great dormant trees in the surrounding English countryside, towering above sculptural bracken, where the beautiful palette of hues in early December offers warm browns against muted greys and greens, and the magical illuminative qualities of beech leaves glowing with internal sunshine, even as light is fading all too soon in the afternoon. Daylight hours become increasingly precious as the Northern Hemisphere heads towards the winter solstice. Every moment of sunshine in the garden is appreciated. Salvias, Ping Pong and Armistad have been stellar container performers this year. Ping Pong will survive the winter here in a sunny, sheltered spot. With her impressive size, this December visitor might be a queen buff-tailed bumblebee. Her tongue is long enough to reach down the tubular flowers directly to the nectar source, whereas other smaller bumblebee visitors have had to make holes at the base of petals and insert their tongues to access nectar. Here you can appreciate the size difference between a buff-tailed bumblebee queen and a worker bee. Observing the queen, we realise that, just like humans, bees find flies circling in one's personal space incredibly annoying. This wolf spider also amused us with its conflicting predator instincts. It really wants to attack the queen, but it really doesn't. In southeast England, we've been spared the recent treacherous weather impacting many people in the UK. However, plants in pots are particularly vulnerable to temperature extremes, so usually our container-grown Armistad would have been moved under cover to protect from winter cold and wet. But right now we don't want to diminish the bees' food source. We've noticed native hogweed is still flowering locally, providing another potential source of nectar and pollen. Armistad seems to be adding some insulation around the half-hardy honeybush Hesperantha Major, which continues to look very lush and lovely. This in turn shelters the understory pollinator-friendly florist cyclamen, which will only tolerate a light frosting. So for now we are taking a gamble and leaving the entire, not completely hardy arrangement intact and in situ and in view of the window to be enjoyed a while longer. Just like the magical sunlight-emitting qualities of golden beech tree leaves, Hesperantha Pink Princess seems illuminated from within. Meanwhile, Hesperantha Major has buds emerging on a new crop of flower spikes, promising appropriately bright red blooms for Christmas Day. Brave August snapdragons have not yet succumbed to the nightly freezings. They are also covered in promising festive red buds. Rosemary Delaney, newly planted in August, is trying hard to display her pretty petal gowns in full glory. But she is just not dressed for the weather. Meanwhile, I've cut the stem of a single agapanthus flower to enjoy a little memory of summer indoors on the windowsill. Sometimes the attractiveness of foliage on flowering plants can be overlooked when beautiful blooms capture the spotlight. It is only now in December that we are really appreciating the elegant silvery leaves of Buddleia Bressingham Bountiful, a new addition to the garden this summer. This plant has the most exquisite soft lilac flower panicles, a gentle sweet scent, and lives up to the genus reputation as a powerful bee and butterfly magnet. We even walked through the nursery checkout with a bee in situ. We weren't charged extra. We will upgrade the container size in spring for a bigger, better show next year, but may eventually decide to plant it in the ground, where its fully realised height and spread would be 5 feet. It joins 2 other Buddleias, Summer Beauty and a towering self-seeded variety. Don't tell them, but Bressingham Bountiful is a new dreamy favourite. In past years, we've made decorative door wreaths from cut foliage, dried flowers and artificial elements, and some creations have been more memorable and more labour intensive than others. But this year we are using living plants for the first time. Cyclamen were planted into recycled packaging filled with compost, which was easily moulded to fit the curve of the frame. The wreath will be hanging on a canopy-covered door, which is ideal for protection because heavy rainfall can spoil these cyclamen blooms, and we want them looking good for weeks to come. Ivy was planted in the same way and loosely twisted through the curved frame structure. Since ancient times, evergreens like ivy, holly, bay, box, fir and yew, rosemary and laurel have been popular decorations for midwinter as symbols of undying life. In England, there arose many superstitions around evergreen decorations. In years of sparse berries, farmers in southern England believed holly brought indoors was bad luck and a sign of low fertility that would affect livestock. So they added sprigs of ivy as a protective symbol of good fortune. Author Susan Drury tells how in parts of Oxfordshire in the 17th century it was customary for the maidservant to ask the manservant to fetch ivy to dress the house. If the man neglected his duty, the maid would steal a pair of his breeches and nail them up on display against the gate. From breeches to stitches. We wanted a natural look, so I wrapped some Hessian ribbon left over from the Christmas tree around the basket and fixed it in place by sewing it to the frame in a couple of places. All these plants will be transplanted to the garden next year. The next step was adding the miniature postbox. It still seems a little unexpected seeing the royal cipher CR for Charles Rex rather than ER for Elizabeth Regina. Lovely cushiony moss, foraged from the garden, was used to cover compost and hide the tops of the recycled planting bags. The bow saved from last year's wreath, tied in, no pun intended, with the Hessian theme. And lastly, a pair of gold baubles added a hint of sparkle. We hope the ancient association between ivy, long life and good fortune still works its magic in the modern age for everyone we welcome through our door and to our channel over the festive season. I feel a little guilty about popping purple because my agapanthus appreciation this summer was absolutely hijacked by tall, dark, handsome, intensely purple, dense-headed agapanthus blackjack. Blackjack, featured in our July garden video, was a phenomenal summer performer, architectural in form, richly saturated, repeat flowering, and never without happy bees hurrying into its petal trumpets. Popping purple has a more understated beauty, but this may be preferable for softer colour schemes or for aesthetes favouring subtlety and loveliness. It is extremely charming, repeat flowering, and seemed especially popular with smaller pollinators like hoverflies. Surrounded by the harmoniously hued petals of Geranium Roseanne in our raised bed, it looked delightful. And what we also came to appreciate through the months of September, October, and as seen here in late November, was the shiny, lush green compact foliage that did not turn yellow as autumn temperatures dropped, in the way the leaves of many other agapanthus cultivars tend to do, but remained looking attractive and added an element of freshness and light reflecting qualities to the velvet and matte textures of surrounding flowers, foliage and seed heads. Evergreen agapanthus are not fully hardy in our location, so usual practice is to move the garden table closer to the house and wind bubble wrap around to create a protected igloo for agapanthus and salvias to overwinter. But this year we've invested in 2 pop-up plant tents to house the expanding plant collection. There was a warm sense of cosy satisfaction in seeing container plants tucked safely inside for winter. However, this new system creates far more condensation than we experienced before, so daily ventilation has become a bit of a chore. In retrospect, a classic saying comes to mind: on the positive side, we are now able to use the table to lift plants and pots of spring bulbs up into direct sunlight above an area which becomes shaded in winter, and also giving a better view of these plants from the house. When I saw the gorgeous oversized blue-grey needles of dwarf Scots pine Chantry Blue, my heart just melted for this tiny plant with a big presence. I could imagine the fantastic contrast between the stunning foliage and our bowls of orange and yellow crocus flowers when they emerge in the spring. I painted this small plastic bowl for bulbs in a bronzy colour to contrast with the blue needles. It is slightly lower than the existing height of the pine tree's current pot, but that's fine because I'm mixing half regular compost with half bonsai potting mix for good drainage and enough water to make the mixture pliable, and then planting the pine within a mounded shape rising from the edge of the bowl. By their very nature, pines have loads of character, but I also wanted to train the side branches onto a more horizontal plane. I got distracted while filming this because, look, our 1 degree bee is back. Fully UK hardy. In the ground, this pine has the potential to grow slowly to about 6 metres in height. At this point, I started adding moss and slates, and most importantly, positioning the 2 flints with holes through them. People often call these type of stones ring stones or witches' stones. We know them as hungry stones. I began tethering the side branches to the flints with almost invisible fishing line, gently pulling them down to a more horizontal position. I've wrapped brown foam around the branches so that the line doesn't dig into the bark. The first tying in went well, but when it came to the second flint, the power of the pine branch was mightier than the weight of the stone. It kept lifting the flint up. But eventually, a chunkier stone did the job. I covered the compost with moss from the garden, knowing full well that nesting birds will most likely pull all of this off in the spring, but that's not a problem. I added a few more pieces of slate, including one resembling a bridge. We really love this little pine. We can't wait to see how its character evolves. Despite the dormant trees and shrubs with inner energy suspended in time, early winter in the garden still feels productive and alive. It's not only non-native plants like salvia continuing to flower, but native UK wildflower, the Welsh poppy, is a cheerful presence too. Corn poppies, sown in autumn, have been putting on impressive growth in their pots, and looking as lush as the evergreen shrubs and grasses that provide year-round shelter for insects and birds. To each of you visiting our garden through the channel, a heartfelt thank you for subscribing, supporting and engaging with us at Appleby Fernsea. We're looking forward to welcoming you again for the next tour in 2024. In the meantime, we wish you all joyful times and nature-soothed minds.
Mm-hmm.